I still remember the exact moment my world at Meridian Solutions began to crumble. The air conditioning was humming too loudly that Tuesday morning, drowning out the usual office chatter as I stepped off the elevator. Something felt off. The receptionist avoided eye contact as I passed, and conversations seemed to halt whenever I approached. After 6 years as marketing director, I thought I knew every rhythm of this place, every unspoken rule. I'd built our department from 4 uncertain people in a cramped corner to a team of 15 that had increased company revenue by 40% in just 2 years. We were family, or so I believed. My office door was ajar when I reached it, which was strange since I always locked it before leaving. Inside, Jessica from HR sat stiffly in my visitor chair, hands folded in her lap like she was at a funeral. Behind my desk, sat Marcus, our CEO, scrolling through my computer. "Good morning, Ellie," Marcus said without looking up, his voice unnaturally formal. "Please sit down." Jessica wouldn't meet my eyes. "We need to discuss some concerns that have been brought to our attention." That's how it started, not with a bang, but with carefully constructed corporate phrases, allegations from an anonymous source, evidence of client communications being mishandled, questions about recent campaign numbers that, when presented as they did, made perfectly reasonable decisions look suspicious. "We're conducting a full investigation," Marcus explained, still scrolling through my files. "But in the meantime, we'll need to place you on administrative leave." The words hung in the air like smoke. "Who made these allegations?" I asked, my voice steadier than I felt. "We can't disclose that," Jessica replied automatically. "But the claims were detailed, enough to warrant serious concern." I looked at my desk, noticing things already missing. My team photo, the small jade plant I'd kept alive for 3 years, my notebook with 6 years of contacts and ideas. "You've already searched my office," I said. Not a question. Marcus finally looked at me. "We needed to secure potential evidence." I felt cold suddenly, aware of the eyes watching from beyond the glass walls of my office. My team, my people, pretending not to stare as their leader was being systematically dismantled. Then I saw him. Craig, standing by the conference room, watching intently. Craig, who'd been gunning for my position since he transferred from the London office. Craig, who had somehow gained Marcus's ear despite mediocre performance. His face betrayed nothing, but there was something in his stance, a subtle confidence that hadn't been there yesterday. "I need you to surrender your access card and laptop before you leave," Jessica was saying, sliding a form across the desk. "Sign here to confirm you understand the terms of your administrative leave." My fingers felt numb as I took the pen. This wasn't just about allegations. This was a coup. 6 years of building trust, of late nights and early mornings, of choosing this company over everything else in my life, now reduced to a suspicious signature on a form. "You'll be contacted once we complete our review," Marcus added, already standing to leave. "We'll need to ask you not to contact any clients or team members during this time. Isolation, the final blow. Cut off from anyone who might stand up for me." I walked out with a small box of personal items, feeling the weight of stares and whispers. Not one person approached me. Not one questioned what was happening. Fear is a powerful silencer in corporate America. In the parking lot, I sat in my car and finally let the tears come. Not from sadness, but from a burning, clear-headed anger. They thought this was the end of my story at Meridian. They were wrong. This was just the beginning. The first week of administrative leave felt like grief. I cycled through denial, anger, bargaining, and depression, sometimes all before breakfast. My apartment became both sanctuary and prison as I avoided calls from confused friends and family who couldn't understand why I wasn't at work. I'd built my entire identity around Meridian. Now, with nothing but silence from HR and unanswered emails to former colleagues, I was adrift. On day 9, my phone rang with an unfamiliar number. I almost didn't answer. "Ellie Shaw?" The voice was warm, confident. "My name is Diane Winters. I believe we have a mutual acquaintance in James Chen." James had been my first major client, at Meridian before he left to start his own firm. We'd kept in touch sporadically over LinkedIn, nothing more. James mentioned you might be available for some consulting work, Diane continued. I'm launching a startup and need someone who understands marketing strategy for financial services. I almost laughed. I'm not exactly available by choice. There was a pause. James filled me in on the situation at Meridian. That's actually why I called. Their loss could be my gain. That afternoon, I met Diane at a small cafe far from Meridian's downtown office. She was younger than I expected, maybe early 30s, with a straightforward manner that put me at ease. As she outlined her vision for a fintech platform targeting underserved markets, I found myself taking notes, asking questions, thinking strategically for the first time in days. The allegations against you are absurd, she said suddenly, putting down her coffee. Anyone who's worked with you knows that. I stiffened. How much did James tell you? Enough to know that Craig Wilson has been planning this move for months. He's been reaching out to your clients, suggesting there might be changes coming in Meridian's marketing department. The pieces clicked into place. The missing reports, the delayed campaign approvals, the sudden questions about client relationships that had been solid for years. How do you know this? I asked. Because he approached my previous company with the same insinuations. I've got the emails. Diane's expression was matter of fact. James has others. That night I couldn't sleep. I paced my apartment thinking about Diane's offer to join her startup. It was tempting, a clean break, a fresh start. But something kept nagging at me. This wasn't just about finding new work. This was about truth. I pulled out my personal laptop and began to write. Everything I could remember about the last 6 months at Meridian. Every strange interaction, every delayed approval, every time Craig had inserted himself into my projects. I created a timeline, cross-referencing with emails I'd forwarded to my personal account for working from home. By dawn, a pattern emerged. Craig hadn't just opportunistically stepped into a situation, he'd engineered it, meticulously and patiently. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Coffee? Same place, 10 a.m., bringing friends. Diane wasn't alone. James was there, along with Tori Matsuda, Meridian's former legal counsel who'd left abruptly 3 months ago. I always wondered why they pushed me out, Tori said after I explained my timeline. Now it makes sense. I would have seen right through this. Marcus has been making questionable decisions since the board brought in that new COO, James added. This isn't just about your position, Ellie. Tori leaned forward. Here's what you need to know. The allegations they've made, they've created a paper trail, but it's flimsy. They're counting on you to either resign quietly or fight loudly. So what do I do? I asked. Neither, she replied with a slight smile. You gather evidence, build allies, and prepare for the moment when they realize they've made a critical error. James slid a business card across the table. And in the meantime, you work with us. Consulting, independent projects. We'll keep your skills sharp and your reputation intact. For the first time since walking out of Meridian with that pathetic box of desk trinkets, I felt the fog lifting. This wasn't the end of my career. It might just be the making of something better. One more thing, Diane said as we prepared to leave. I've been approached by someone on your team, a junior analyst, named Rachel Kim. She says things at Meridian are getting worse and she's looking for an exit. Thought you might want to know you still have people in your corner. Rachel, my newest hire, quiet, brilliant Rachel who caught errors no one else noticed. Maybe I wasn't as alone as I thought. 3 weeks into my consulting arrangement with Diane, Rachel reached out again. We met at a small bookstore cafe where no one from Meridian would think to look. Her normally pristine appearance was disheveled, dark circles under her eyes betraying her exhaustion. Craig is destroying everything, she said without preamble, clutching her tea like a lifeline. He's restructured the entire department. Half the team has been reassigned. The others are looking for jobs. What about the clients? I asked, trying to keep my voice level despite the pain of hearing about my team's dismantling. Fleeing like rats from a sinking ship. The Johansson account is gone. Berkeley, too. She glanced around nervously before pulling out her phone. But that's not why I asked to meet. Rachel showed me an email thread she'd forwarded to herself. In it, Craig discussed cleansing my digital footprint at Meridian, directing IT to archive and then delete my work email history, with specific instructions to remove certain client communications. He doesn't know I'm on this chain, she explained. It copied me because I manage the marketing analytics database where some of these records are backed up. My hands trembled as I read. This is tampering with evidence. It gets worse. Rachel pulled up another email. Remember that campaign? Report for Westlake Financial that went missing right before your review? Craig had it all along. He deliberately withheld it because it showed your strategy outperformed projections by 23%. I felt sick. Why is Marcus allowing this? He doesn't know the half of it. He's been in Asia for the acquisition deal. Craig's been handling day-to-day operations in his absence. Her voice dropped. But Marcus is back tomorrow. There's an all-hands meeting scheduled. I copied the emails Rachel showed me, adding them to my growing file of evidence. Thank you for this. I know you're risking a lot. She straightened her shoulders. I didn't join Meridian to participate in corporate sabotage. You gave me my first real chance. I don't forget that. After Rachel left, I immediately called Tori. Her legal mind worked rapidly as I explained what I'd learned. This changes things, she said. They're actively destroying evidence related to false allegations. That's not just unethical, it's potentially illegal. So I can fight this? Hope flickered for the first time in weeks. You need to move carefully. Forward me everything you have. And Ellie, she paused. Don't wait too long. Documents have a way of permanently disappearing. That evening, I received an unexpected call from Maria Cortez, one of Meridian's board members. We'd worked together briefly on a diversity initiative the previous year. I'll make this quick, she said, her tone businesslike but kind. I've been hearing concerning things about your departure. The official story doesn't align with what I know of your work. Are you pursuing legal action? The question caught me off guard. I'm exploring my options. Smart. Look, I can't be directly involved, but the board meeting next Thursday will address department restructuring. If you have information that should factor into our decisions, having it by Tuesday would be advantageous. The pieces were aligning. With Rachel's evidence, James's client testimonials, and now a potential ally on the board, I finally had a path forward. I spent the weekend meticulously organizing everything: the timeline, the evidence of Craig's manipulation, client results that contradicted the allegations. By Sunday night, I had a comprehensive document that told the true story, not just of my ousting, but of a calculating attempt to dismantle a successful department for personal gain. Monday morning, my phone buzzed with a text from Rachel. Craig, in panic mode. Saw deleted emails in system backup. Meeting moved to tomorrow. Prepare. Then, almost immediately after, another message, this one from Jessica in HR. Meridian requests your presence for a follow-up meeting tomorrow at 10 a.m. regarding your administrative leave status. Please confirm. My heart raced. This was happening faster than I'd anticipated. I called Tori, who answered on the first ring. They contacted me, I said. Tomorrow morning. Perfect timing. I've reviewed everything. You're in a stronger position than you realize. Her voice held that confident edge I remembered from negotiations. Here's what you need to do. We talked for over an hour, refining my approach, preparing for every possible scenario. When we finished, I felt something I hadn't experienced since that terrible morning in my office: certainty. That night, I slept soundly for the first time in a month. Whatever happened tomorrow, I was no longer the blindsided victim. I was walking in with clear eyes, irrefutable evidence, and something Craig would never expect. Allies in places he thought he'd secured. The game had changed, and he didn't even know it yet. I arrived at Meridian 30 minutes early, sitting in my car and watching familiar faces file through the revolving door. My navy suit felt like armor, the same one I'd worn to land the Berkeley account that had apparently now walked away. The irony wasn't lost on me. The The security guard did. A double take as I approached the desk. Ms. Shaw, didn't know you were coming in today. Special invitation, I replied, signing the visitor log with deliberate strokes. The elevator ride to the 12th floor stretched into eternity. I focused on my breathing, on the weight of the portfolio in my hands, on Tori's advice echoing in my mind. Let them talk first, understand exactly what narrative they're pushing before you dismantle it. Jessica waited in the lobby, her professional smile not quite reaching her eyes. Thank you for coming in, Ellie. We'll be meeting in the executive conference room, not my office, not HR. The executive room meant Marcus would be there, and likely others. I was right. Marcus sat at the head of the table, looking tired and irritable. Craig occupied what had once been my seat at Marcus's right, a favor I'd earned over years. The company's general counsel, Ben Harrington, sat opposite Craig, reviewing documents with a frown. Two surprising additions: Maria Cortez from the board and Robert Chen, the CFO. This wasn't just a follow-up meeting about my leave. This was something larger. Ellie, Marcus gestured to an empty chair. Thank you for joining us promptly. I took the seat, placing my portfolio on the table but keeping my hand resting on it. Of course. I understand there's been some confusion about the circumstances of your leave, Marcus began. In light of new information, we wanted to review the situation directly with you. Craig shifted uncomfortably as Marcus's words hung in the air. His usual confidence seemed diminished. Ben slid a document across the table. We've prepared a summary of the allegations that led to your administrative leave. Please review it before we continue. The document was thinner than I expected. Just 3 pages outlining claims about mishandled client communications and discrepancies in campaign reporting. The same vague accusations from before, but now with specific dates and projects referenced. I read through it carefully, noting what was there, and more importantly, what wasn't. None of the emails Rachel had shown me appeared in their evidence. None of the tampered documents were mentioned. Is this everything? I asked, looking directly at Ben. This summarizes the primary concerns that... That's not what I asked, I interrupted, surprising even myself with my calm assertiveness. Is this the complete record of evidence against me? Ben glanced at Marcus, who nodded slightly. Yes, Ben replied. These are the specific incidents that led to the decision to place you on leave. I opened my portfolio and removed my own document. Then I'd like to submit this for your consideration. It's a comprehensive timeline of the last 6 months at Meridian, with supporting evidence that directly contradicts these allegations. I handed copies to everyone at the table. Craig's face drained of color as he glanced at the first page, which clearly outlined his systematic interference with my work. This is absurd, he sputtered. She's fabricating. Everything in that document is independently verifiable, I cut in, including emails that were deliberately deleted from the Meridian servers after my departure, copies of which are included in Appendix C. Maria Cortez leaned forward, flipping directly to that section. Her eyebrows rose as she scanned the contents. Mr. Wilson, she said, her tone chillingly professional. Are you familiar with these communications? Craig's eyes darted to Marcus, seeking support but found none. Marcus was already deep in my report, his expression darkening with each page he turned. Where did you get these? Marcus finally asked me, ignoring Craig entirely. Multiple sources preserved them, anticipating they might be needed. I didn't mention Rachel by name. The originals were backed up on Meridian's secondary server until March 30th, when they were permanently deleted following specific instructions, which are documented on page 12. Robert Chen, who had been silently reading, suddenly closed his copy. This goes beyond a personnel issue. If these records are authentic, and they appear to be, we're looking at deliberate corporate malfeasance. That's a serious accusation, Ben cautioned. So is falsely accusing a 6-year department head of misconduct, I replied evenly. So is tampering with evidence. So is interfering with client relationships worth millions to this company. Craig pushed back from the table. This is a coordinated attack on my character. She's bitter about being passed over for advancement and... Passed over? I echoed. I was placed on leave before any advancement decisions were announced. Unless... Maria interjected, looking pointedly at Craig. Those decisions had already been made unofficially. The room fell silent as the implication settled. Marcus closed my report and looked at me with new eyes, not friendly, but respectful. We'll need time to verify all of this, he said. Of course, I agreed. I anticipated that. Page 26 includes contact information for clients, former employees, and current team members who can corroborate specific elements. They're expecting your calls. As the meeting adjourned, I felt neither triumph nor vindication, just a hollow exhaustion, mixed with quiet resolve. This wasn't over, but for the first time in weeks I was no longer fighting shadows. Whatever happened next would happen in the light. The 48 hours following the confrontation passed in a strange limbo. I fielded calls from Meridian's legal team, answered additional questions, and provided further documentation. Through it all, I maintained my consulting work with Diane, finding a surprising comfort in building something new while my past underwent scrutiny. On Wednesday afternoon, a text from Rachel. Craig cleared out his office, security escorted him out. An hour later, Marcus himself called. I won't waste time with pleasantries, he began. We've verified your information. The board has terminated. Craig's employment effective immediately. I closed my eyes, absorbing the news. And my status? That's why I'm calling. We'd like you to return, Ellie, not just to your previous position. We want to offer you the Senior VP of Marketing role that was being created. The irony wasn't lost on me. The very position Craig had schemed for was now being offered to me. 6 weeks ago, I would have been ecstatic. Now I felt only caution. I appreciate the offer, I said carefully, but I'll need some time and further discussion before I can consider it. Marcus sounded genuinely surprised. I assumed you'd want your job back. What I want, I replied, is to work somewhere with integrity and transparency. Meridian has broken my trust, Marcus. Rebuilding that would require significant changes. Name them, he said simply. I outlined my conditions. A full departmental audit to assess the damage Craig had caused, reinstatement offers to any team members who'd left or been reassigned, a formal apology to affected clients, and a seat on the executive committee to ensure marketing had a voice in company governance. Those are substantial demands, Marcus noted. So was the damage done to my reputation and department. After a moment's hesitation, he agreed to present my terms to the board. 2 days later, Maria Cortez called to personally inform me they'd accepted everything. With one addition, they wanted me to lead a company-wide review of management practices to prevent similar situations in the future. When I returned to Meridian the following Monday, the office felt simultaneously familiar and foreign. Jessica met me in the lobby, her usual corporate demeanor replaced by genuine contrition. Your office is ready, she said, and there's someone waiting to see you. Rachel sat in my visitor chair, a small jade plant on the desk beside her, a perfect twin to the one I'd lost. Welcome back, she said, rising to her feet. I thought you might want to start fresh. I embraced her, this quiet analyst who'd risked everything to stand for what was right. Thank you doesn't begin to cover it. The team's waiting in the conference room, she replied with a small smile. What's left of it anyway? 7 people remained from my original 15. Some had followed Craig to his new venture before. His deception was exposed. Others had simply sought stability elsewhere during the chaos. Those who stayed wore expressions mixing relief, curiosity, and wariness. I won't pretend the last month didn't happen, I began, perching on the edge of the conference table rather than standing at its head. We've all been through something that shouldn't have occurred in a professional environment, much less one where we spend most of our waking hours. I outlined what I knew, what had happened, and what would come next. No corporate jargon, no false promises of instant recovery. I'm not the same leader who left 6 weeks ago, I admitted, and this isn't the same department, but maybe that's not entirely bad. We have an opportunity to rebuild something stronger, something that values transparency and integrity from the foundation up. Over the following weeks, that rebuilding became my obsession. I worked directly with clients who'd been alienated, many of whom returned once they understood what had transpired. I interviewed potential new team members with a sharper eye for character and resilience. Most importantly, I implemented systems that made it impossible for any single person, including me, to control information flow. The Senior VP title came with its own challenges. Executive meetings were political minefields, especially as my management review revealed uncomfortable truths about how Craig's manipulation had succeeded. Some leaders resented the scrutiny. Others embraced the chance to strengthen their departments against similar threats. Through it all, I maintained my relationship with Diane's startup, transitioning from consultant to advisor. Her fresh approach to business ethics became a touchstone when Meridian's entrenched culture frustrated me. "You're walking a tightrope," she observed over dinner 3 months after my return. "Changing a system from within while protecting yourself from being changed by it." I twirled pasta around my fork, considering her words. The strangest part is feeling grateful for what happened, not for Craig's betrayal, but for what it taught me. Which is that resilience isn't about bouncing back to who you were. It's about growing into someone stronger than you could have been otherwise. 1 year after my return to Meridian, I found myself standing in the same conference room where I'd begun the rebuilding process. This time, instead of 7 uncertain faces, 22 people filled the space, a marketing department that had not only recovered but expanded under my leadership. "I've gathered you all here for an announcement," I began, meeting each gaze, with a quiet confidence that had been hard-won. "But first, I want to acknowledge something." I gestured to the wall where we'd hung our department awards and achievements from the past year. The Berkeley account had returned, bringing 2 others. With it, we'd launched Meridian's most successful campaign in company history and pioneered a transparent reporting system that was being adopted across divisions. None of this would exist without what we went through together. The crisis that nearly destroyed this department became the catalyst for its transformation. A few of the veterans, the ones who'd stayed through the darkest days, nodded in understanding. The newer team members leaned forward, sensing the weight of my words even without having lived through the experience. Today marks a milestone I never anticipated when I fought to return here. I paused, the familiar knot of emotion tightening in my throat. I've accepted a position as CEO of Winterlight Digital. Murmurs rippled through the room. Everyone knew Diane's startup had exploded onto the scene, securing major funding and industry recognition for its innovative approach to financial inclusion. "This isn't a goodbye," I continued. "It's an evolution. Meridian and Winterlight have finalized a strategic partnership that will allow our teams to collaborate on initiatives that align with both companies' goals. Rachel will be stepping into the SVP role here, with my full confidence and support." Rachel's eyes widened in surprise. We'd discussed her future, her potential, but not the specifics of this transition. The spontaneous applause from her colleagues confirmed what I already knew. She'd earned their respect just as she'd earned mine. Later, as the team dispersed to process the news, Marcus appeared in my doorway. Our relationship had transformed into something neither of us had expected. Not friendship exactly, but a mutual respect forged in adversity. "You're really leaving," he stated, closing the door behind him. I nodded. "It's time. You rebuilt this department from ashes, Ellie. The board isn't happy about losing you. They're gaining a valuable partnership and a capable new leader. Rachel will take marketing places I never could." Marcus studied me, curiosity evident in his expression. "You don't seem conflicted about this decision." "I'm not." The certainty in my voice surprised even me. A year ago, I fought to return because I needed to prove something, to myself, to this company, to everyone who witnessed my fall. I needed to reclaim what was taken from me. But now you've outgrown us," he finished. I shook my head. "I've outgrown who I was when I first came here, the woman who built her entire identity around a job title, who measured her worth by her position in the hierarchy. "And who are you now?" The question wasn't just professional curiosity. In his own way, Marcus had begun his own journey of transformation after what had happened. Someone who understands that resilience isn't about clinging to what was lost. It's about creating something better from the experience. I smiled, thinking of the path that had brought me here. Someone who no longer fears losing everything, because she knows she can rebuild from nothing. 2 weeks later, I emptied my office for the second time. Unlike the first, this departure came with proper goodbyes, with a transition plan, with dignity intact. As I placed my jade plant in a box, now grown into a small, thriving bush, Rachel appeared in the doorway. "Ready for your last executive meeting?" she asked. The boardroom had been prepared for a proper send-off. Maria Cortez had championed the partnership with Winterlight, recognizing the potential for both companies. As board discussions progressed, to other matters I quietly excused myself. In the elevator down, I thought about the woman who had ridden up in tears a year before. The pain of betrayal had carved channels through me that would always remain, but they had filled with something unexpected. Wisdom, compassion, a deeper understanding of both people's capacity for deception and their potential for growth. Outside, spring sunshine warmed the city streets. I took a moment on the sidewalk, looking up at the building that had been the center of my universe for so long. It now seemed smaller, just one structure in a vast landscape of possibilities. My phone buzzed with a text from Diane. "Ready to build something extraordinary?" I smiled, tucking the phone away without responding immediately. There was no rush, now. The path ahead was clear, but I wanted to savor this moment of threshold, of consciously choosing to step from one chapter into another, carrying forward not bitterness or regret, but the hard-earned wisdom that only comes when you've been broken open and found the courage to reassemble yourself into something stronger, truer, and unafraid of whatever comes next.